This is a trap that I feel like no one ever talks about that is beyond horrific, and it makes it my favorite by far. Hello friends, we're going to get straight into it today. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about every single saw trap. I'm going to explain every single one, and I'm also going to put it on a ranking system, ranking them on how I enjoy them, from how poetic they were, how brutal they were, how creative they were. We're just using a simple S to D tier system. I'm not going to give any spoilers that aren't needed. So if you want a video on twists and turns of the Saw franchise, we're talking about all 10 films today. So I'm happy to do that for you. So let me know. That's a whole different subject. I'm not going to give you any twists that don't have anything to do with these traps because we have enough to get through. It's going to be brutal. There's around 70 traps. A lot of them have the common names, but I've put in my own name where I think it's better. I'm not covering every single booby trap. I am covering some half traps, but mainly I'm focusing on the traps and not the tests themselves. I have done some language tweaks as necessary, just so you guys can see this, and it's not age restricted. So a barrel would belong to a... and a crown sometimes is used interchangeable with a head, and we sometimes say sharp instruments, and instead of saying unalived, I say end or ended. It's not a big deal. It's pretty easy, and I promise I will be very descriptive. You'll know what I'm talking about. I'll show you what I can. I can't wait to talk about my favorite trap with you today because I feel like there are a lot of traps in here that are underrated, and I have some unpopular opinions, so let's get to it. I do want to thank my patrons really quickly. Thank you guys so much for supporting me and allowing me to make these videos. I don't get many sponsorships for obvious reasons, so I really appreciate you guys. If you do want to become a patron, it's always linked down below in the description. You get bonus videos every single week, and you can also join the Discord and join movie nights. Let's get into the tier ranking. Okay, for the tiers, we have Diabolical, the magnum opus, which I mean, I'm just going with the S to D, so really do take these with a grain of salt, but we are just going from S to A, traumatic, B, horrific, C, ouchy, and D, half-baked. Half-baked are a lot of traps that I feel like are unfinished or aren't poetic or just really don't give the full rounded experience to a Saw designed trap. But please just keep in mind that it is S, A, B, C, D, and the way I'm describing them is just how I am putting them in order of what I find to be the best Saw trap in terms of both emotional and physical trauma, as well as enjoyment for the viewer, which is very sick. I'm not rating on brutality, but more enjoyment. What are the best traps? You know, the ones that you go away and you can't stop thinking about. That's what we're talking about today. Let's get started. Bathroom trap. It's hard not to put this one up the top because it is so iconic. Saw's inception is designed around this trap, and it acts more like an escape room with several hidden clues and hints. The victims of this trap are Adam, also known as Lee Winnell, and Dr. Lawrence Gordon. They both wake up in this bathroom that's basically a biohazard with a person who's supposed to be a victim in between them who has ended themselves, or so we think. On the tape, the doctor is told that he needs to end Adam by 6 p.m. otherwise his family are goners. But on the opposite side, Adam just has to survive until the timer goes off. Obviously, this is a huge crowd favorite, and I want to put it towards the top because of the ending, because of the twist, and this is one of the traps that have a huge twist. We learn at the very end of the movie that the person on the ground in between them is Jigsaw. And it very much is a gotcha moment, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the trap itself. The trap is more of an escape room type situation, especially compared to a lot of the other traps in here. And they are given out. I know this is going to sound very harsh, but as we go through, this one is a very easy trap to escape. Sawing part of you is not that bad in comparison to what some of these other people have to go through to even have a chance of survival. We do also learn that there was another way out, which was the key that was in the bath with Adam when he woke up. That is devastating, but another cool twist to the story. I actually don't think this trap is that diabolical. Although Adam is trapped in the room at the very end, the doctor gets out. That comes into play in other films, but it is escapable. Adam just didn't have the kahunas. But I do think because it set up the whole legacy, I'm still going to put it at the top. I'm going to be really weak with the first one. Just give me the first one. We can rearrange later if we feel like it. Okay, razor wire maze. This one is really interesting again in the first film because we don't actually see the whole trap. It's more of a flashback because the police find the victim once he's already been through it. So we don't get to go through it with him. And we'll see this as a recurring theme throughout all of the films where there's some flashback traps and some of you don't have full information on. This one we do have information though. I actually hate / love this trap, but the victim is Paul and he is a real trooper because he tried to get through this maze and his stomach fluid was found on the ground, so he really tried. This is the diabolical part that I want to talk about with these traps, not just the physical but the psychological, because the idea behind why he's stuck in the trap is because he has tried to end himself by using a similar sharp object. And Jigsaw says in his tape, the irony is that he'll have to do this to himself again and again and again throughout this trap to get out. I don't know what Alanis Morissette song you were listening to, Jigsaw, but that's not irony to me. How the trap works is that he is put into a cage tunnel and he had to work his way through with these sharp objects in the way, like a jungle gym, to a door that was his out. I actually think that the reasoning that Jigsaw would do this to someone is diabolical enough, and the way that it was not possible for him to get out. I don't know if it is possible to beat this one, but I find it absolutely horrific. I'm gonna put this one in traumatic. I know we're starting pretty high, but don't worry, we'll go through it. Next, Flammable Jelly. This is one we kind of half see as well, but we do get the full story, and this one I find is particularly cruel. It's interesting where Jigsaw decides to layer up. So, you know, the bathroom trap, they just have to do one thing to themselves to escape. The maze trap we just talked about, he had a timer and he also had to work his way through. This one is really interesting because it's a triple whammy in a certain sense. The victim of this one is Marky and he wakes up naked in a dark room with only a candle to guide him, but he's covered in a flammable substance head to toe, and then he also has poison in his system. And that's not all, the ground is covered in glass. And he needs to walk around with this candle to find a combination that is on the walls to undo this safe that has his antidote inside. So he has several, I wouldn't even say 3, that's like 4 or 5 different deeper layers to it. I think this trap is so impossible to do, and he does end up ending by catching on fire. So poor Marky never had a chance. Mark was accused of faking his illness, and Jigsaw, he has huge personal grudges. He has issues, but he would not let it go that Mark was pretending to be sick, so this is his irony in that situation. I think this one is absolutely horrific, more so because there is no easy way out, and the layers deep it goes. It's also very creative. So I'm gonna go with traumatic. Okay, reverse bear trap. If there was a different level for iconic, I guess in a different bin, this would be iconic because the reverse bear trap really introduces us to the core character of Amanda, who we all love. And there's actually 3 reverse bear traps throughout the whole 10 films, and they go through different designs. This is my favorite design by far. It's very much steampunk, grungy. It's very Saw. I love looking at all of these stills I have got from the films. It really shows how intense the color grading is throughout all the movies. Very intense greens and very intense blues. They play a lot with temperature, and this trap really suits that, and that's why I find it's the most iconic trap other than the bathroom one, but I think the standalone as an actual trap and not an escape room, this one. Of course, this is Amanda's, who is the most likable returning character in the franchise. She wakes up with this device attached to her jaw like a helmet, and it would snap backwards. That's the idea, that it, yes. It reverses, obviously. This one is really interesting because Amanda has to dig into her cellmate, who she doesn't know is still with us. She has to get into his stomach and retrieve the key in time. She has a sharp utensil to do so, and she does not delay. She goes straight for it, and she's able to get out of her trap, of course, ending someone on the way. She claims that Jigsaw helped her with this trap to be able to see value in her life as someone who had a addiction. I, again, don't really understand how that works, but it wakes her up and gives her another purpose in life. I love this trap. I love the idea, the creativity to this trap. But in terms of the trap and the escapability, This one is actually quite easy to get out of. I'm actually going to put this one in horrific only because she had to deal with another person. But you can get out of that trap. It's quite easy. What have I become? Okay, the last full trap in Saw, the first film, is this drill chair. And this one is interesting because when you watch the entire production, all 10 films, you realize this is very much a Temu design. This has nothing on what's to come. And especially as the last trap in this amazing film, I guess it is bookended with the bathroom trap at the start. There's really not much to it, and it is kind of a half-baked trap. Jeff is the victim in this one, who is trapped in a seat with reinforcements. He has a metal brace around his neck, preventing his neck or crown from moving, and on either side are drills. But Jeff isn't the proper victim in this one because it's meant to be the test, or really it is kind of half of a booby trap. The detectives are entering and they're coming after Saw, and this is a way for him to try and get them off his back and see if they would rather save a life or come after him. So poor Jeff is really in this situation as someone else's test. The reason I say this is Temu is because they use their barrel to stop it. They're able to disarm it really easily. It's very breakable. Like I said, it's just to slow them down, and he is fine. They just use their barrel and they jam the trap basically, instead of doing what they're meant to do, which is to find the key on a large ring of hundreds of keys, find the right key within the time. I would say this one is half-baked. I don't think it's a proper trap. I think compared to the other ones here, what are you doing, Jigsaw? But let's keep going because it's only up from here. The next trap is from Saw 2. This is the death mask. The second film immediately ups the trap game, and this is Michael, who wakes up with a contraption around his neck, which is also described by Billy the puppet as a Venus flytrap. Think of his head as the middle of the flower. It's like full of beautiful pollen, and the sides are petals, but they're spiky, and when the timer goes out they will slam shut. But there is a way out. He has a key that is implanted into his eye. This one is diabolical. I think anyone who loves horror movies has issues with watching movies that have eye scenes. Eye scenes always get horror fans for good reason. I think it's a very relatable, sensitive part of you. Jigsaw himself, or I like to call him Jiggy sometimes, he is diabolical in this one because not only does he tell him where or how he can get out of the trap, he also shows him a tape of the implant taking place while he was passed out. Would you, in this situation, do that to get the key out? Could you? I don't know if I could do that. Usually his traps only give you 1 to 3 minutes. That's the average time that he gives you to realize what's happening to you and make a decision. In this one, Michael has 60 seconds and he's given a sharp instrument to just go at it. And Michael, he's no Amanda. He can't make it happen. I think this one is horrific. It's so intense. 60 seconds. Are you kidding me? I'm going to put this one in traumatic. I can hear you guys already screaming at me. Okay, the next one is Peephole, and this has to do with the setup of the second film. So the second film does take place in the Nerve gas house, and this has several victims that need to work together. We have Daniel, Jonas, Gus, Addison, Laura, Obi, Xavier, and of course Amanda. They wake up confined to a room with a nerve agent that is fatal if not treated quickly. Now they must complete the following traps in order to get the antidote. Usually each of the films are set up around a group of people, a theme, and this one is these people who have to figure out how they know each other. That goes into the twist, but it's just important when we talk about how we go on in the next couple of traps. But the first trap is more of a booby trap, and it's more to set up the atmosphere. Jiggy wants to let them know who they're really messing with. And the peephole trap goes off when Gus tries to leave the room using a key that comes with a note specifying that you should not use this door. Xavier and Gus approach the door. They put the key in. There's a barrel behind the peephole of the door, and Gus has just, had a little peek, and a slug goes directly. Another eye situation. This one is half-baked, I would say. I don't consider it a trap. It's more of a warning. Like, you've got to listen to my instructions to a T, and if you don't, this is your first warning. Okay, the furnace one, oh God, it's awful. Fire is just awful in these situations. Obi is given the furnace trap, and this is when he has to crawl inside a furnace, and there's 2 antidotes. Remember, they have this gas poison in their system, and he is given the chance to get 2 antidotes if he gets inside this furnace. Crawling inside, he finds them hanging off a chain, but pulling it down closes the furnace door. The rest of the group are scrambling to try and get him out. They're breaking the window, but Obi doesn't see that there is a handle that he could pull that would be the key to get out. He just has to crawl back through the furnace, which means back through the open flame, and turn off this valve. This really plays into the peephole because it's the idea that you have to read and think about what you're doing before you do it, and he gets straight into the furnace and he doesn't look for clues instantly. He just goes for the antidotes. Silly him. But he does end trying to get out of the furnace, and it takes him and takes the 2 antidotes with him. I think this one is actually quite unfair. I don't think it's that creative. I don't know. I just don't think it's a very fair or smart trap at all. I think it's very cruel though. So as per his best traps, I wouldn't say the furnace is. It's awful. It's ouchy. The next one is another iconic one because it just needs the name to really put you in that situation and make you feel those feelings. This is, you know, the pit. Poor Amanda is back for this one. The group moves into a room and there's a 3-minute timer that starts when the door opens, and they find a pit full of sharp, dirty, used instruments. And this is actually meant for Xavier. The instructions are given for him to find a key. He's actually a dealer, and it's meant to be the idea that he has to get down and dirty and deal with what he puts his clients through, with them not knowing what is really within different vials. But he decides to be the character we know he is and grab Amanda and just throw her in there. And Amanda, being the woman we love and know, she gives it her all. She is digging through trying to find this key that will unlock the door, and she is doing it with both hands. Things are sticking out. It is a horrific scene, but she does not delay. She never delays. I love Amanda. Amanda gets the key. Unfortunately, they are 1 second off from unlocking the door in time. This sounds really weird to say, but no one is ultimately hurt from this going forward. I would be interested to see if there was any harm done because of this situation, if Amanda got anything, but we don't ever hear about that, and Amanda is a character who returns, so we know that this was not the end of her. This one is an ouchie. I know that's wild to say. I think it's a really creative one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put in horrific because I think it is more creative. Because if we're going by the traps we love, the best traps there are, it's a horrific situation, but you can get out of it. So I guess it is kind of on par with the bear trap. Okay, this next one is the Antidote safe room. And this is why it was important that I mentioned all of the characters within this gas house. Jigsaw tells them clearly as a hint that the key is in their mind and the answer is in the rainbow. And it's not until the end they realize that on the back of their necks is a number, and each number has a different color, so they're meant to arrange them in the order of the rainbow, and that's going to be the code that's going to unlock this huge safe and give them antidotes. Xavier hunts some of them down and ends some of them in violent rampages just to get these numbers on the back of their necks, which is absolutely wild since they could have just come together and had communication, but you'll find communication really isn't a thing in any of the Saw films. And the fact that it was a rainbow, it really could have been a wholesome ending, but it doesn't really get brought to fruition. And I do think this one is more of a escape room-esque situation, and I think it's not very memorable at all. I find the Antidote safe room to be half-baked. We don't get to see it carry out to the end, and it just doesn't seem like a Jigsaw type trap. There's nothing really at stake compared to the other traps, especially if we even look at the bathroom trap, which really probably shouldn't be up the top, but it gets a pass because it is the original Saw trap. That one, they still have to disconnect things from their body. This one, they don't have to do anything. They just have to get in a line and make a rainbow. It's very PG. It's very G-rated Saw trap. While that is happening at the same time, there is the razor box though, and this is one of the characters, Laura. She goes into another room by herself and finds an antidote sitting in a clear box. This is when she puts her hands up into the box. It has a mechanism that doesn't release the same way. Think of a straw when you put a straw into a fast food drink lid and how it will go up but not down without some friction. And she's got a lot of friction when she pulls back. I like this trap. I don't think there's really any irony or poetry to it, but it is simple and disturbing to look at. Although we don't get to see it fully play out because of Xavier, but I do like that it's a very simple idea. Like, she just has to get out of there without losing too much vital fluid. So it's a very simple trap that doesn't need much explanation, which I like. It's not overcomplicating it. I'm gonna give this one an ouchie, but I do really love the design. Okay, we're on to Saw 3 already. This is the classroom trap, and can I tell you, this one is absolutely wild. I don't think this one is beatable at all. This steps it up. Like I said, you go from the razor box, which, yeah, you might be losing a little bit of nectar, but it's not an instant end, and this one is horrific. So the victim is Troy, and he wakes up in the middle of a classroom with multiple chains with large rings attached to different parts of his body, including here, in his hand, everywhere. There's 10 to be precise. Then little old Billy comes in and tells him, hey, you need to remove these. You have 90 seconds. If you don't, and the only way to remove them is to yank them. Let's think back to the eye situation we just talked about and how horrific I thought that was, the death mask. It makes me want to move the death mask down for sure, because he is given the death mask all over his body. Basically, he needs to yank it out as well. It's insane. Not within 90 seconds. It's crazy. And this trap does have an explained irony where Jigsaw says that he keeps returning to prison, so he must love the chains so much. But on top of this being what I think is unbeatable, it is actually unbeatable because the door is found to be welded shut, so there is no way he would have ever got out. And I'm gonna say, without context on what Trevor's done to return to prison, I find this to be very judgy of Jigsaw. I'm gonna be for real, guys. I'm having a hard time deciding where the classroom trap should go, because I do think it is horrific, the situation, but the idea that there was no real way out or no clever way out makes me feel like it's a half-done trap. Like, they've set up the situation so it is disgusting, traumatic, horrific, all of these guys in one. Diabolical, I would say, but there is no way out or any real way out, so it doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out trap, mind the pun, to me. I'm actually going to put it in half-baked, to be honest, because we do discover that the door is welded shut, so there was no real way of him escaping. And I know that might be a little bit controversial, but we're here to make our own decisions and not live by the rules. The next one is the angel trap, which sounds so much cooler than this one actually is. Detective Ellison Carey ends up in this trap, and it is pretty detailed. She is suspended with a leather type harness and chains. Secured to her rib cage is this contraption, this metal contraption, and in front of her is her way out, which is a glass or a beaker that is full of acid, and inside that is the key, and she has a certain amount of time before the key is going to dissolve that she needs to reach in there, grab it, and unlock herself. Unfortunately, she does not do this in time, and we get to see this cage mechanism expand, which is meant to look like wings. I just think the name of it, the angel trap, it sounds much cooler than what it looks like, but the idea of the puzzle itself is very intense, especially putting your hand in there and the idea that it's dissolving as you're going. She's given 60 seconds. It is a lot. This one is horrific for me. It's a lot. Okay, the next one is the collar, and if you didn't believe me that Jigsaw is selfish, this one is exceptionally selfish because he brings a doctor in to make sure he survives until the end, basically, of the movie. His heartbeat as a terminally ill person is tied to her fate because she is a doctor. Okay. There are 5 barrels and they're all aimed at her face. Basically, she has to help him to survive until another victim, Jeff, has carried out his tasks. And she is amazing. She really keeps her cool this entire time. But due to the trap, there's actually a complex backstory, and she does not make it to the end because of someone else's actions, which has to do with someone else's actions, which has to do with a twist later on in another film. It's a lot. And poor girl, she never had the opportunity, but she really does keep calm, cool, and collected under this situation. She even performs live surgery on him in this rundown facility, so good on her. I think she does amazing in this trap. I also like this trap because Amanda built it on her own, and I believe we come to realize this is one of the first ones that Amanda has made, and I think that it has a personal significance to her, who also had something attached to, you know, this region of her body. I'm gonna give it a B, because I think that it is great that it's tied to a external party, but there are a few moving factors that don't quite work and don't give her a fair shot. I mean, his terminal illness being one. Okay, and this leads us into the storyline of Saw 3, which is about Jeff, who wakes up in an abandoned meat packing warehouse. Now it's up to him to find his way out within 2 hours. So Jeff has become the center of the next 3 traps during his time at this facility, where there's a lot of emotional connection and attachment to his victims, or the victims in the traps that he goes through. And this is because Jeff's son has passed away through a car accident, and these are the people who are responsible for that. So he enters the first room and Danica is hanging there. He is told by Jigsaw that Danica was the witness to his son's accident and didn't do anything. I would love to know how Jigsaw knows this. How has Jigsaw found the one witness who did not come forward during this moment in his son's life? I don't know how you would even know that if the police don't know that, if the guy doesn't know that. He's all seeing, all knowing at this point. But she is hanging there, and during intervals, water is sprayed onto her. So as the water hits her, it's obviously speeding up the process of her being completely frozen. The key is a very easy reach. You do have to go through metal bars and reach hard, so hard that you will have contact with the metal bars, causing ice burn, but it is possible. Unfortunately, Jeff, who is the victim, perpetrator, the person being tested, he does not think fast enough. He fumbles, and poor Danica is stuck there. This one's hard because it was so easy for him to beat, and it's also such a horrific ending for her. I like this one because it plays with a completely different element, which is the cold. I find a lot of these have to do with heat, so I appreciate that. I'm gonna give this one a C though. I don't find it to be that memorable. Sorry, Danica. Okay, the next one is the pig vat, and this is when he goes into the next room and he finds the judge who worked on the case of his son. He is chained by his neck to a bottom of a huge industrial drum, and then brought out because they're in a meat packing facility are pigs. They're full bodies that are on hooks on a conveyor belt, and they're dropped into a grinder, and then they're kind of thrown out into this vat where the judge is. So as the judge is on their back with their neck tied, their vat is kind of filling up with this pig liquid, and it is gross, and it is going to end him by drowning. This one I think is really interesting and creative and just emotional bait, because Jigsaw decides the way that he's gonna get out is gonna be so complicated. There's a casing of all of his son's most precious possessions, and what he needs to do is basically flick a switch, start it off, and have it burn through all of that, and what will be revealed is a key in the ash box underneath, and all he has to do is flick the switch. So it's just an emotional trap, really. We haven't really seen anything else like this, and I honestly don't think that there is much else like this to come. It's a very different one. Anyway, that's the key, and then he can get him out of it. So again, it's a very simple ending, but it's a very interesting dynamic, and that's why I didn't want to just go off brutality. I know a lot of people have done the ranking due to brutality, but I wanted to really judge the traps as they are. I honestly think putting the names next to them have really tripped me up throughout, but this one I do think is traumatic, but in just a completely different way. The poor judge and everything he's going through, it's pretty disgusting to do with the liquids, but then also the son's items. I feel like this is one that a lot of people remember because of that. So I'm actually going to put it in traumatic. But speaking of that, the most intense one of the most intense ones is next, which is the rack. And this is one that everyone always talks about because poor Timothy is in the next room. Timothy is the man that is accused of ending his son's life. The judge and Jeff enter the room and find Timothy on the rack. The rack basically looks like he is on the cross. He is strapped in with his head in a certain contraption, his arms out like a cross, and his legs also caught down. He is completely strapped in, he can't move. There is a way for him to get out. There is a glass hanging suspended cage, and in there is a barrel that is connected to a key. And anyone can simply put their hand in there, grab the key, but they would have to take something from the barrel in exchange to get the key out. When this trap starts, all hell breaks loose, and the judge is yelling at Jeff, saying you need to do something. It becomes this whole idea of him taking a slug in replace for someone who's done something so horrific to him or changed his life. It was an accident. Anyway, that's the moral dilemma of it all. And there is irony, I guess, in this one, if you want to call it that. Anyway, Jeff finally decides that he is going to outsmart Jigsaw, and he decides to put his hand into this casing and untie the key. In doing so, the barrel goes off anyway, and it hits the judge, ending the judge. And then by this time, the rack has already started, and the rack takes Timothy and every part of his body that it's clung to, and it twists them in ways that are unnatural to the human body, to anybody. Everything is going backwards. Everything's going the wrong way. Everything is snapping. You hear, you see, and it is horrific. It is totally traumatic. It is one of the worst traps because of the awareness Timothy has about what's happening to him and how it is so emotionally charged as well. Imagine losing your son in this way, and they try and bring it in that, you know, he's not a good father to his other kid. There's a lot going on with his backstory, but trying to get him to snap out of it and live again by doing this to somebody else. Because now he has that trauma as well. Anyway, I just think it's horrific, and poor Timothy never stood a chance, especially with someone like Jeff. I think he did have a couple of minutes, or at least a full minute, but it's over way before that. The rack goes down in history. It's one of the best traps, and I'm going to give it an S tier because not only is it completely ruthless and completely traumatic, but it does also have the puzzle piece where it can be beaten. That's what I like. I like ones that can be beaten but come at great cost. Ones that are actually poetic, and this one has it all. So that's my first S other than the original. But there's another S that's coming straight after that, I can tell you, because we're going straight into Saw 4, and honestly, I love the traps in this film. This was a delight to rewatch because they are brutal beyond. And the Mausoleum is my favorite Saw trap. I'm going to put it right up the top already. It just happens that these ones are back to back. I did not plan it that way. So these two random people wake up in a mausoleum with this device that is in between them in the room. They have a chain that is connected to their necks. And as the device starts turning like a wench, it brings them in closer and closer. If they get too close, it would end them. Here's the kicker. This is Trevor and Art, and one of them has their eyes shut and one of them has their mouths shut. And so one of them is seeing what is happening in this room, but unable to communicate with the other one, who wakes up in a pure nightmare. Could you imagine waking up and not being able to open your eyes, but can hear something happening, you can feel it, and then someone starts attacking you, because that's exactly what happens. Basically, on the back of their necks, on the back of the devices, is the key to unlock the other one. So it's either they can communicate in some kind of way, they can figure it out, but the one who has their eyes shut, Trevor, is so scared and so petrified, he is just in defense mode. There's also instruments in the room to take control of the situation. Art is the one who can see but can't speak, and he does manage to use some of these instruments to end Trevor in a horrific manner, and he manages to overpower him because he can see what he's doing and take force that way. I just can't imagine being Trevor in this situation and being just attacked and not understanding anything that happened to you. It really does haunt me what happened to this guy. I think he's the number one victim in all of these films. And so Art does that, gets his key, and he gets out. And this is what kills me, because Art then opens his mouth, ripping, and he screams. And that's kind of the cutscene before the title comes in for the film. And what I don't understand is, Art, why were you not doing that before? Why did you not open your mouth until now? If you could do that this entire time and you're doing it because you're this whole release of adrenaline and fear, you should have done that just 30 seconds ago, mate. Like, it kills me every time, the ending of that. It makes me so mad, but it has really stuck with me. This is a trap that I feel like no one ever talks about that is beyond horrific, and it makes it my favorite by far. But we've got some other good ones in this film. So it's important to mention that the next few traps are part of the Officer Daniel Riggs trial. He wakes up trapped inside his own house and must complete a series of tests, and it's the ultimate personal escape room. The wild thing about his trial is that he has been targeted by Jigsaw because he cares too much about his job, which is law enforcement. And these traps are different to all of the other films because they act as anti-traps. The idea behind it is his irony. He's meant to learn that he should not interact and he should not help these people in order to learn some kind of lesson. Imagine now, Jigsaw is punishing you because you're not helping victims. He does have a motivation to get through these traps as soon as possible. It is to get to another detective at the very end. This is Eric Matthews, who we see throughout the film on a ice block trap, but we'll talk about his trap at the very end. But you do see flashes of it throughout. The name of this next one is awful. The Scalping Seat. This one seems personal to me. It's probably to a lot of you guys out there. It's one of those ones that just, you can feel it, you can hear it, you can feel it. He walks into his lounge room and he finds a woman with her hair fed into a contraption. She's on a seat. She's back like this, and once it starts, he has to try and figure out how to stop it. If he dares, remember this is an anti-trap. He does find the combination to the trap with the different gears as they turn. They are revealing different numbers, and he's able to feed that in and release her. He does try to cut off her hair, but he realizes all of the sharp utensils from his house have been moved, so there is a lot of damage done to her for how long she was stuck in the chair. But because this is an anti-trap, there is a twist. Basically, she then asks if he's a cop and he says yes. She grabs out an instrument and tries to attack him, and he realizes that he has been set up. She's been told that there is going to be a cop who comes in and you need to end him so you can survive. I don't really like that bit. It's just a simple way that she could also fail again. She hasn't got much power in the situation where she's not really given an instrument that is that fatal. And I would hope that she would have had a remote or something that is similar to what had just happened to her to be able to do back to him. I feel like the first part of the trap is so detailed and the second part is kind of like a gotcha moment. It's painful, but I do think this one is kind of nonsense for me. I'm gonna give it a, I don't want to half bake. I'm gonna give it an ouchie. I think it deserves an ouchie. Next, we have another one that is one of my favorites. This is a very good example in comparison to the classroom trap because it's kind of similar in some respects, but the person who is the victim in this trap is horrific. In the last trap, she is meant to be a criminal, but we don't really understand too much. But in the bedroom trap, this trap we're talking about now, he is a criminal, and there's a proof of horrific SA. But it all starts when Riggs, who is going through all these traps, he finds a suitcase with the pig mask, and continuing the theme of anti-traps, he has to grab the next victim and put him in the trap. And this is Ivan. He takes him to a bedroom. There are pictures everywhere and a video plays with evidence of these crimes. And then of course, I do find this part to be a little bit murky where he has to strap him in himself and kind of take charge of the trap. But when the trap starts working, that is what I really adore, which is a really weird thing to say about this trap, but I do find it to be completely horrific. Basically, the idea, which it does have true irony behind this one, not only is he strapped to this 4-post bed, it has a metal structure where the poles that he is tied to are very firm on his limbs, and then his neck is put in between this other metal contraption that has 2 kind of swinging arms. And it is up to him to make the decision. You guys are gonna love this. Within 60 seconds, he is given a little trigger in each hand and he has to decide if he would like to see or feel again. If he doesn't decide to give away his sight, he will be pulled apart by this contraption holding his legs and arms. Or he can decide to get rid of his sight, which means 2 little beautiful birdie, no, they're not birds. They're like toothpicks, I guess is the best way to put it. Something sharp and direct. They will fall down and hit him right there on each side. So he has to do it one. He only gets through 1 and the timer's up. And so he gets 1 eye and loses, just torn apart. Things fling across the room. And I think it's one of the most impressive traps in terms of the graphic content, but also the irony, whether he wants to see or feel, because what he's done in his own crimes, he only gets to live with one part of him. I don't know. I really like the bedroom trap. And again, another one I feel like no one ever talks about. I find this one to be like, it's up there for me. I think I'm going to have very unpopular opinions compared to other people with these traps. But I also think different things probably scare me a lot more. Okay, the spike trap. This one is a little bit unfortunate because we don't get to see everything that happens. This is one of those callback traps where we're watching the detectives find it after it's already been used. And I don't like the idea behind this trap at all. So this is Morgan and Rex, and they are husband and wife, and they're two victims that have been suspended. They have like a harness around them, but then going through them are these spikes. They're attaching them, like keeping them together. But Morgan has the opportunity to remove them from her side and not have any long-lasting damage. The only thing is if she does pull them through, then her husband will, and her husband will end. And this is meant to be a life lesson because she has gone through DV with her husband, and it's meant to show her that some wounds will heal and some won't, and that she shouldn't be putting herself back in the same position, which I think is horrific, and Jigsaw really needs to check himself. This really sinks lower, and I mean, I should say the Jigsaw entity, because not all of these traps are done by Jigsaw per se, because we know Jigsaw is a different entity in some of the films, but the idea of Jigsaw himself is what I'm talking about, and I just do not think this one hits the mark at all. I think it's a really cool idea. I do think it's rushed through the way it's shown as well, and I think if they took time and care and really thought about this and did it in a different way, I like the idea behind it, but the execution is all wrong for me. So I'm going to give this one an ouchie. This one I also find to be kind of half-baked because we don't get to see it all happen in the same way that you would hope. But what I haven't said about this one is Rig actually enters the room and finds Morgan with one more thing to be released from her. And because she hasn't done it herself, he leaves her to learn the lesson for herself. So it's a double whammy. It's almost like, okay, well, you've been in this situation. You have to figure it out how to get yourself out of it. And you cannot finish this lesson until you've completed the task. So that's why Riggs is not able to help in this situation, and he needs to kind of stroll on past. He does see her, tell her he's not going to help her, that she should finish the task, and he does pull the fire alarm on the way out. Actually, you know what? I'm going to move this one down further because there's also the idea that she wakes up with this already in her body. So it's not really a trap where you need to do something by a certain amount of time. Otherwise, something will happen to you, something will fall into you, something will go off. She is already given the situation that she is going to be stuck here, or she needs to pull them out. So I just don't feel like it works the same way as the other traps. I don't know. Is that just me? It's a horrific idea, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it's the best thought through construction. Okay, let's finally talk about the ice trap. This one takes place inside the meatpacking building that we saw in the last film. And here we have Detective Eric Matthews, and he's trapped hanging from here with a chain and some rope, and he's basically just gliding on top of this ice block that is melting, and he needs that to be stable so he won't lose oxygen. Here is the thing about this trap. On the other side of this trap is a chair, an electric chair, and as the ice is melting, it may make the chair go off. But we do find out that this is a dummy design, and that part of the trap doesn't actually work. But the real part of the trap is that because the idea is that Briggs, who is being tested for all of these, he needs to stop trying to save people. How dare he do his job and his passion and, you know, just be a humanitarian. He actually needs to wait until the timer is up before he enters. And if he enters the room, it will set off something that will let 2 additional ice blocks fall from a contraption up top and slam down on Eric Matthews's crown, slamming it together, smushy, smooching each other, these blocks. And they do. I think this one is horrific. I do think the design is very strange. I just think it's a very strange idea to have ice as the rig instead of just having 2 metal parts. I don't know. I just think it's a very strange trap, but the way it does come together, it is very effective graphically, visually, when you see it. it is pretty epic. So I'm actually going to give this one a high score. I'm going to give it traumatic. I think it's done really well, and it is a huge surprise when it swings and when it happens, because you're so scared of what's happening down below that you have no idea what's about to happen up high, and it is shocking, and it definitely stuck with me. But before we finish this film, we also have another trap that is kind of unrelated to the main story, and this is Cecil's trap called Knife Chair. It is pretty horrific, but it's not unbeatable. It is a very OG simplified trap. He is put into a chair, and in front of him is this overlocking construction of sharp objects. You can see the title, and they interlock over his face horizontally like this, and he has to push forward in order to get out of the chair, but to push forward would cause them to scrape across his face, and he does so. This is kind of like a booby trap in a way. It's just so easy to beat, but he does have a fatal incident straight afterwards, which makes it a little bit more horrific. But this one I find to be half-baked, even though it's a really cool idea. I really do like this idea. It's kind of like the box we talked about here. It's kind of like this one, but it doesn't have a key to the end. It's just push straight through, and you can do that, and it's not fatal. It's not really that damaging. There are scars, but I don't think it actually penetrates that deep. I know that's wild to say. I'm going to put this one in half-baked. Before we wrap up this one, we do have one more, which is Spine Cutters, but we don't get to see the full reveal of this one. It is the controller, the manager of a couple of these traps during this film, has a device that is put around him in order for him to carry out the collection. We haven't got the original Zep. He does not have an entry on this ranking because his journey was also a personal journey that didn't have its own particular trap, and this one does, but we don't get to see it get fixed on. We don't get to see all of the rules and all the specifications into it, so I don't feel like it's a complete rounded trap. Kind of the twist for this would be more so that Art is the victim, and he is the guy at the very start of the film that I talked about who opens his mouth. This is Art, and damn, he is put through the ringer because yet again he is put through another trap. This one has a pincher at the top that would sever him if he does not complete his task. I just don't feel like, if we look at it as a film, that this is really a fully fleshed out, again, mind the pun, trap. You just get to see a little outline of what could be. Okay, finally, we're on to Saw 5. This is the Pendulum. This one is intense. This is a hefty trap. And I will say, from here, the traps become extremely chunky. There's a lot of reinforcement. They mean business. They've gone from being somewhat easy, simple designs to really thought out. I guess a lot of more production value was put in, and the Pendulum really shows that. This is the opening Saw trap, and this one is about Seth, who Jigsaw claims got off easy from a conviction in ending another person. He wakes up on this metal platform and he has a choice, of course. This pendulum will begin swinging at his midsection, and as it goes, it will become lower and lower and virtually separate him in two. It is a huge pendulum and it is sharp. His options to stop it though include putting his hand into devices on either side of him, and he can press down on a button, and starting this contraption on either hand will end up smushing it. Seth does attempt to do this with his hands, but in doing so, I guess the reaction that his body has trying to pull back from the pain results in him being separated anyway. So he gets kind of half of both, which is a horrific ending. I think this one packs a punch. It's hard to beat and it is damning. I think this one's really intense. I feel like it kind of links in poetically, but not fully. So I'm going to give this one traumatic. I do think it's a really good trap. Next, we have Water Cube. This is beatable, and this is also a very strange idea. And this one, we have Special Agent Peter Strum, and he wakes up with his head in this glass box that is hanging from the ceiling. All of a sudden, water starts pouring in. This one is meant to be unbeatable. It's just a way for them to end him without directly ending him. It's actually more of a consequence than a trap itself, because he is told that he shouldn't be exploring and moving past the place that he is in. So this is to punish him, but he thinks quick and he actually punctures himself, allowing himself to breathe. The way that he thought of that by himself, and people can't even think about the answers or what to do within 60 to 90 seconds with Jigsaw telling them how to survive, he harms himself and he ends up living, and I love him for that. Unfortunately, does not get far, but I do love him for that. But this is half-baked. I love the idea, but it's more of a consequence than a complete puzzle. Here we enter the next group that are tested, and this is Ashley, Charles, Malik, Britt, and Luba. They wake up together underground and must face these next series of traps together in order to exit. I really like these puzzles, by the way, but each puzzle has a timer, so it's a very easy and interesting setup and scenario that allows the viewer to just enjoy the different creative experience, and I do think these ones are really creative. The 5 wake up with a collar around them, and they're all connected by the same pulley system. The cables run through this sharp object right behind them, offering to separate them if they get close enough. There are boxes in front of them, but they're just out of reach, and they have the key inside to untie them. And all they have to do is communicate with each other, knowing who's going forward and who's going back, because they're all at the mercy of each other and how they're pulling and stretching whatever tension they have. Unfortunately, they panic. They only have 60 seconds, and one of them does end. And this is a really sad situation because they do realize later on that they only needed one key to get them all out. So if they had communicated, one person could have got out, got the key, passed it down, and nothing would have happened. It's really not that hard to beat, but I do really love the communication structure of this one. I think it's really cool, and that's what all of these ones have in common. I don't think it's that memorable though, unfortunately, but it's a good setup. I'm gonna give this one an ouchie. I mean, it's pretty obvious to separate themselves like that. I feel like we've done too much with the neck at this point. I'm over the neck stuff. Next is ceiling jars. I like this one, although I do feel like this one has a very easy out as well, which makes it just not as memorable, but it is a really cool setup until you realize how easy it would be to beat this trap. They walk into a room and there are a bunch of jars hanging from the ceiling. There are big chambers on the side, and basically they need to get out of the way of the main room because there's going to be an explosion. They have to smash the jars on top to find the right keys to open the right amount of chambers to get in and find a hiding spot from this main event going off. There's 4 chambers, but there's only 3 keys that will fit them. But the issue is these chambers are huge. If they had worked together, they could all get into one chamber, let alone if there was still every member of their party, they would all be able to fit without any issues. They are fighting over these keys, and one ends up ending another one. It's crazy because these chambers are so big. I don't understand why they didn't think about all just finding one, communicating, and getting in together safely. I love the setup and the idea, but it's also the panic that sets in that just makes these people act erratically, and I just don't feel like it is scratching that itch for me. It doesn't feel so dire, it just feels dumb. I do like the idea of the trap, but I feel like they're given too much leeway, so I'm gonna give this one an ouchie as well. I don't like this next one. This is the chair. We dip out of the timeline and we see Detective Mark Hoffman as a victim. I don't love this trap, but I hate this dude. He is by far the worst character, I believe, in the Saw franchise, and I was really loving seeing him as a victim for once. He is put into a chair that has a barrel facing his head, but it's a fake out. It's a complete fake out. This is maybe the worst fake out trap there is because the barrel is activated by Jigsaw and nothing happens, and it's meant to kind of be a bargaining tool to make this guy work with Jigsaw. I hate this trap because I was really looking forward to him ending. And it just is very unsatisfying. That's probably the worst one so far. Next, we have electric bathtub. So this goes back to the group of victims working together. There was 5, but there's now 3, and they enter a room that is a bathtub surrounded by 5 coils, and they have 3 minutes to figure out how to connect 5 coils to the bath water, closing the circuit and opening the door bolts. The idea of this is there should have still been 5 victims because they all could have got out of the other traps so easily, and if they had all taken a little tiny zap each, a little tiny bit of the current, which would have caused them harm, but if they all took a piece of that themselves, then they would have been able to exit easily, all making a small sacrifice. Instead, what do? They take one of the people and they throw them in the bath, and they do it to them. They get out, but it does cause another whole sacrifice, another whole person to end, and shows how selfish the group is. So technically they win this one, but they're kind of failing at the same time. I like the idea and setup for this one. It is a little bit complicated for the result, or really I wish we could have seen what it looked like with 5 people to see how it was meant to be. But it's not too bad. I'm going to give it an ouchie as well. I do like these puzzles, and I like them back to back to back as a whole string of puzzles, but I just individually, I don't find them to be that epic. But the next one I really enjoy, because it's when they go into the next room, which is the 10 pints, where they find out that they could have gotten out of all of these traps together. They realize this now. They realize the error of their ways, because in this room, there are holes for all of their hands. Inside this box with these holes is a sharp rotating instrument, and the idea is that they all, again, sacrifice a little bit. In this trap, it's vital fluid. If they all give the same, they would be able to get out without any issues. And there's a jar there. They need to collect 10 pints. There's only 2 people left, and they do decide to split it. They believe that if they do split it evenly, it will still be okay, even though that is a lot of vital fluid. This one is interesting because they do have 15 minutes to do it, which I think is wild. And also with great sacrifice comes, I want to say great reward, but it's definitely not a good reward, because Malik puts his hand through there, and what comes out is shredded. It's absolutely almost split, and it is not pretty. It's a gruesome yet powerful bonding experience for the 2 left. I think it's a really great name and a really great trap, and I'm sad again that we didn't get to see all 5. I do think that this one is an epic ending to their little trial together, so I'm going to put this one in horrific. I think this one's a little bit more memorable. I love this next trap. I think that this one is awesome. This is the twist trap of Saw 5. I'm already going to put this all the way up. Look guys, we have another great one. I absolutely love this one. This is the glass coffin. This is an anti-trap, but it's the anti-trap unlike other anti-traps. So Agent Peter Straw might not have been ended by the water cube, the glass cube, but he is still out to learn the same lesson, and he enters a room where he believes he finds a trap. He is followed by the perpetrator, Hoffman. I hate Hoffman. And they go into this room, and Strom thinks he's being very clever and pushes Hoffman into what we find out to be the glass coffin. But this is an anti-trap, and before he knows it, the glass coffin begins to lower down. And Hoffman, you don't think you could get any more smug, but he manages to. As he is lowered into the ground, you realize that he is in the safe spot of the room, and the rest of the room has become a trap. He has gone to a secure space in the floor and is being pumped with oxygen, clean air, and this room that Strom's in begins to close in on him until it finally smooches him. His dust, and it is brutal. It is so brutal, but it's so powerful. It's a twist. It's the ending. I appreciate all of the Saw movies, and they were really fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but I think this movie is kind of janky. But that ending, I'm not gonna lie, I feel really embarrassed by the amount of goosebumps I got from watching this scene. I was so giddy watching the glass coffin, and I love it. Okay, Saw 6, they're really stepping it up in this one because Pound of Flesh is a lot. I love this one because there is no delay. This is one of the perfect traps for me, and one that I will always remember. Most of the victims in this film do know each other. They're colleagues, and they work together, and they are told by Jigsaw in his rules for the game that they have 60 seconds to give the most amount of themselves over, and whoever gives the most amount will survive. So imagine looking at someone you know and being told, okay, only one of you, and you have to give the most right now. They have a device around their heads with bolts, and whoever loses, the bolts will enter their crown. And Simone, my God, Eddie starts kind of, just skimming. Taking little peeling like a potato, little parts. And Simone really takes fate in her own hands and literally hacks off her whole arm, and by the end, there is no competition. She has got the most weight and she survives. Now you can see why it's so wild that the reverse bear trap was such a big deal. When Simone is out here, got a reverse trap basically, or like a contraption over her face, but she's also asked to give up something else that is, you know, quite a hefty amount and sacrifice something to live. I think it's also the performance by the woman who plays Simone. She's just so good and it's so heart-wrenching. I really love this one. I'm actually going to give it traumatic. It's a simple design, but the idea that you're competing with someone else you know, I think it's really cool. This film is about the Williams trial, and these next traps he must compete within 60 minutes or his sister, who is waiting at the last trap, will be ended. Additionally, there's also devices on each of his limbs that will have them turn into dust in their own kind of way, and as he goes through the traps, he gets a key to unlock those devices before the timer goes out. So he's working for himself and for his sister. The next trap is the Oxygen Crusher, and this has both Williams and Hank. They are chained and secured with their arms pulled up, and a huge metal clamp contraption is around their midsection. They both have a mask over their face, and the contraption can tell when they do take a breath, and it tightens the midsection of the rest of the trap. There is a way out of this, and basically it's the other one needs to go. Most of these traps are an if or kind of situation, me or you, and this one is no different. Although they panic, I've never seen anything like this. Within the first couple of seconds, they are gasping for air instead of taking slow controlled breaths, so it's over quite quickly. But it is really sad because Hank is panicking and it shows that he relieves himself. That's the level of fear, which is horrific, and he does come to his end. It's a really grisly trap. It's really disturbing. I like the creativity of this one, but it's just so sad. It's so sad. But I'm going to give it traumatic. I do think that it's really grisly. I like all of these traps, I think, really up the ante. Next is the Gallows. This is a very interesting one. Williams enters this trap. Unknowingly, he walks up to almost like an auditorium with a glass observatory, and he has a handle in each of his hands, and then shown to him is two of his colleagues, Addie and Alan, and they are standing on very small platforms with chains, really sharp chains around their necks. And now it's clear to him that he is controlling them both, and he needs to decide who gets to live and who he lets go of. Basically, when he lets go of one of them, the platform will drop underneath their feet, and hence the name. He does decide to let Addie live, but poor Addie then has to watch her colleague next to her, and she's trapped on that platform. It is wild. He just moves on to the next trap and she's just standing there. This one is beyond wild, and it's also very pointed with him deciding who lives and dies, like to a T, especially with the name. So I'm gonna give this one traumatic as well. I know I'm giving them a lot. I didn't expect it. I did not grade these as I was going. I just wrote down notes of what every one was and the outcome. So this is really surprising to me as well, and what I actually find to be brutal but in an impacting way, the ones that have really stuck with me and traumatized me. Next we have this steam maze. This one is one that uses a lot of communication. They need a lot of communication. So William enters this trap, and it's 2 levels. It's in a boiler room, but below him is a cage little maze design, and he can see where he should be pulling different levers to stop different steam pipes from letting steam out onto the victim down below. The victim down below is Debbie, and she has 90 seconds to make it through. Otherwise, a device will go off, sending a metal instrument into her crown. Now, William has to pull these certain levers to stop the steam as she's passing through this maze, but that steam will then go onto him. So it's very much taking a sacrifice to let his colleague get through the maze and hopefully get out. But there is more, because Debbie does get to the end of this maze and reunites with William, but then it's revealed to her that the key to get out of her trap is within William himself, and now she needs to attack him. But it is a little bit too late, and although a scuffle begins, Debbie is ended by her trap within the amount of time, and then of course William unlocks his little device that is attached to one of his limbs, and he moves on. I would give the steam maze a B usually. I thought it was a really cool design, and the idea that he had to switch things off while she was running through, and it was kind of give take. But what I don't like is the end. I feel like it's quite a messy idea, so I'm gonna give it a C. Okay, this carousel is pretty famous. This one has 6 different victims, and this time they are put onto this little tiny spinning wheel and then chained in place with a mounted barrel at the very front of this device. And basically it's going to take turns to unload It has 6 different rounds and they're going to unload no matter what happens. But William has a chance to move this barrel for 2 of the rounds. Basically, all he has to do is put his hand into a device and it would put a sharp instrument through his hand, but it will press down and then it will move the barrel so it moves out of place and misses twice during these rounds. And it becomes very chaotic very fast because these 6 victims begin screaming over the top of each other, explaining why they should live, and he has to make the decision. It's pretty horrific. It's very tense. And this is true irony because the idea of these traps that William is going through is that he works in the health industry, insurance industry, I should say. And in this one, he is deciding who lives and who ends, depending on whatever quick information he has from them. So it is true irony, I guess you want to say. Jigsaw is returning to his roots, or the Jigsaw entity is returning to their roots. Finally, they're making sense again. I think this is also horrific because they are right next to each other, just one after another, and you're all chained together. And you also have to say these awful things about each other to try and live. This one is visually really impressive and horrific. So actually, I'm going to put this one in traumatic for sure. Now we have the final trap of Williams's trial, and he runs into this last room, which is divided by 3 separate cages. On the end is his sister, Pamela. It's her cage, and she gets to live now because he got there on time, just with seconds to spare. But in the other cage is Brent and his mother, Tara. And Brent and his mother, Tara, know William because William was the person who decided that Tara's husband, Brent's father, will not be getting the health care on his insurance policy that he needed to survive, basically. So they believe that he is responsible for their loved one's death. And now they get to decide his fate while his loved one, his sister, watches. So it's true irony where she gets to watch helplessly as they decide yes or no with this huge leather that says life or death. Tara decides that she does not want to be like him. She will not do it, but her son just instantly steps in and pulls it. Down falls this huge contraption that hooks straight into him, and inside these little prongs are tubes that carry through liquid, and this liquid just happens to be acid, and acid pours into him, ending him from the inside out. It's bubbly, it's messy, it's mushy, but it is true irony, so I do give it that, and it is a really good end to this film. I especially love the son being that brutal. I'm gonna give this one traumatic. The last one is unrelated to William's trial, but we've got another Hoffman one. You know how I feel about him. And this is a really bad one because this is the bear trap, the 2.0 one. And it is so opposite of everything that I love about Saw because it is a stripped back version that is basic metal, almost a minimalistic type approach to something that we really love and care for. Something that was meant to be chunky, big, gritty, rusted, and now we have this cleaner version, and this one is actually constructed pretty poorly because he's able to wedge it in between 2 bars on a door and it goes off, but it gets stuck because it's not powerful enough, and he is able to kind of rip himself out of it. He does have an injury, but he does get out of it. And also, I don't feel like it's a proper trap because I feel like it's just meant to be serving some justice. It's more of a punishment trap. So I don't like this one at all. I would put it in ouchie, but I also just don't think it runs as a trap by itself and the way that he was meant to get out of it. So I'm going to put it there. I'm not a big fan of that one at all. Why are we messing with the original? Let's move on to the next Saw film, Saw 3D. You know what? The Jigsaw entity in this one, my God, such a messy, messy guy. This is gossip central. The next one is called Love Triangle, and I don't know how he asserted himself into this drama or what makes this drama worthy of this kind of attack, this kind of punishment. This one is also known as the public execution because it does happen in a public place. We have 3 victims, Brad, Ryan, and Dina, who are on full display in a window. Dina is hanging from the roof, trapped in, while Brad and Ryan are strapped in, sitting. And there are 3 rotating blades around them, and basically it's up to the 2 guys sitting there to move the blades in a certain order to kind of move the formation of this triangle of these rotating objects, and wherever they move it means one person will end, and they need to figure it out as the spacing between it is becoming tighter and tighter. They have 60 seconds to decide, and they decide Dina should get it because she has put them into a love triangle. Basically, she's dating them both in some kind of capacity, and they're working that out as they go. The craziest part though is it is in public, and as this is happening in a storefront window, people are just watching, no one is getting help, and they're yelling at people, go get help. It feels almost like a Final Destination. It's so public instead of a private kind of gritty atmosphere. I mean, when we look back at the first film, they woke up in a bathroom. Now they're just doing this in public. But I do think it's a very soapy approach. If it wasn't so goofy, I would probably put it higher, but it's hard for me to take it too seriously, but it is a really fun opening. I'm going to put it in horrific. Pain Train is a interesting entry because this is a half-baked one by far. It is so sad because it's a really, really cool trap. It is a sharp object. You can't even really tell what it is, but you know it's going to cause pain, and it is coming at full speed on a little vehicle that is going down some tracks. And Jill, who is Jigsaw's ex-wife, is at the other end, held there, bound there, waiting for it to cause an impact. But then she wakes up because this is a nightmare. I had to include it because it's a really cool idea. But the next one is really sad because this is the horsepower trap, and Chester from Linkin Park, rest in peace, is in this trap, and they do not give him a good reputation because they explicitly say the reason that the people in this trap are here are because of racism, which I thought was really interesting. They don't touch on that again at all. This is in a automobile junkyard, but it's the inside part, so it's kind of the shop area. And here he wakes up fused to the seat of a car, and there's other people from his gang in various positions around the same room. One is underneath the car, one is on a wall, all bound, and one is behind him, and he has to, within the timer, pull himself away from the chair in order to stop a chain of events. He does not do this in time, so we get to see the chain of events unravel. The car falls onto the person underneath with the tires spinning. It then takes off, and then you realize the person at the back was attached by some chains. Some of their limbs were attached by some chains to the car, so you see them separate, and then they go full force into the person who was in front of the car, ending them all within, I don't know, 10 seconds. It's a lot. It is a group project. I wish I knew what it had to do with cars. That's the one thing I was like, I don't understand what this has got to do with cars. Although it's in a scrapyard, I just feel like it's very scrappy in the way that they have utilized different tools that they already have and just the one vehicle to cause so much mess. So I like that. I think that's actually really clever and creative. This is one of the more creative traps I think there is that isn't just down to technology and pretending like we have the technology to do certain things. This one really shows how it is done and how the chain of events take place. It's diabolical, actually. I'm gonna put this one up the top, I think. I think it's actually really clever, and it has stuck with me. No, I do think it's above all of these. I really do. Okay, next is the lawnmower floor. We only get a little glimpse into this one and the idea of what it could have been. We're being told it as a flashback, and we only get 1 second, but basically there are two people hanging, and they're holding on to really, if you look carefully, they're holding on to really sharp edges of poles, and they're hanging above a bunch of lawnmower motors at the bottom of this floor. So obviously they're just holding on for their lives, but there is a way they can survive. One has to fall, so it's whoever falls first. Alex and Sydney are the victims or players in this trap, and it's revealed that Alex was Sydney's abuser, and it's a way for her to take her life back. So again, I'm not a big fan of the let's make you stand up to your abuser by putting you in this horrific situation, even though you're already going through horrific stuff. How about help them? Do you know what I'm, Jigsaw? How about like help them? Get someone to rally around them. How about find them an exit strategy? This is what you think of instead? So I'm not a big fan of that. I wish we would have seen more of this and how they got there. So it's kind of confusing. I'm going to put this one an ouchie. I don't think it's half-baked, but yeah, not the biggest fan of that one. It's a C. It's fine. Now we move into Bobby's trial, and he is the subject of the next few traps. Bobby has faked being a Jigsaw survivor, and he's given 60 minutes to complete all of these traps to get to his wife that he knows is waiting for him at the last trap. And if he doesn't get there on time, it's over for her. The first one is very simple. He has put in a suspended cage that is hanging from the roof, and when he is ready, he pulls this lever, unaware of what it's going to do. It releases the bottom of the cage, but he holds on. Then he's able to swing himself to the side, avoiding spikes below. It's a really, really simple trap. It's almost like a warm-up for the rest. So I'm going to put this one in half-baked for sure. I know it is a full trap, but there's not really a tape. There's not really much to it. It's kind of like the Peephole one. It's just to show that they mean business and that you really have to think on your feet. Next, we have the silent circle. It really goes from 0 to 100 with this next one. This new trap has Nina at the middle. She is strapped into a straitjacket, and she has this large ring around her crown, and there's 4 different sharp metal instruments. They're just rods really poking at her. I find this one is one of those ones that has so many layers to it, because not only does she have that going on, but she has a key to get out that is down her throat and sitting pretty in her stomach, and it is attached to a piece of string that is hanging outside of her mouth, and it's up to him to pull it out to save her. But there is also a device that will set off this trap, these rods, and it measures the sound. So not only does she have to have this key yanked out, but she has to be very silent while it's happening. Hence the name. Now, Bobby tries to do this, but she cannot keep her mouth shut. Well, obviously she can't keep her mouth shut, but she is so loud. She's screaming during the whole thing. It's really horrific. And unfortunately, he does get it out, but she makes too much noise and it ends her. It is a very weird trap, the amount of different pressures she had on herself, but also she was not able to do anything, and he was in control even though he was not really threatened. It's a strange dynamic and strange idea, but very brutal. Very, very brutal. I'm actually going to put this one in traumatic. I would put it at the top, but I do feel like it's just a bit messy with all of the different layers of things that she needs to go through, but it's traumatic as hell. Okay, so next we have the eye wheel. Ugh. Don't you guys love an eye trap? Suzanne is at the center of the next one, and she is strapped to this huge wheel. It's like a wheel-like object, and basically what's going to happen is she's going to start going forward, and there are some sharp instruments waiting for her. So it's in the mouth, and in the 2 eyes, she will lean on these 2 large metal poles basically, and it will go through. To save her, there is another contraption on the other side of the room. I know you guys are going to make fun of how many times I've said contraption. What else do you want me to call it? And he can stop her from moving forward, but he needs to offer up a piece of himself that will be pierced. He only needs to do this for half of the timer so she doesn't get far enough, so 30 seconds, but he fails and she falls face forward, or really rolls into it, I guess. I find this one to be very overcomplicated. It is a cool design, but again, I love the simplicity, and it is very overcomplicated, the idea that there has to be these 2 separate machines, because the way his works is it connects a circuit that stops hers so that he takes the power that it punctures him. And I just feel like it's very complicated for just doing this, just rolling someone into this, especially for a whole wheel to do that as well. So it's a very interesting use of material, but it is brutal. I'm going to give this one horrific, I think, just because it's overcomplicated. I like this next one, which is the Hangman, because I like the idea of communication, and it is very horrific, although I do think it's a bit janky. Although I can't really complain about that, because that's what I didn't like about the second bear trap. So Kale's at the center of this one, and he is blindfolded, and he's held up by this contraption. Obviously you can see the name, so you get the idea. And Bobby enters on the opposite side of the room. What Kale does not know, because he's blindfolded, is that the floor has been removed below him, and there's only a couple of planks, and so he needs to guide him to his side of the room so he gets a key to unlock his trap. So he's instructing him with 60 seconds to walk across all of these planks and get to him, and it becomes a little bit chaotic. They're trying really fast, they're not really communicating the best, and Bobby grabs the key and hopes to chuck it, to throw it at Kale so that he catches it and gets it kind of halfway on these planks. But of course, he drops it and it falls through beneath him, and that's the end of him. I think this one's a cool idea, but it just seems like they've just randomly put this guy in this half demolished building and blindfolded him and hoped for the best. It would have been really cool if they gave him a bigger structure, kind of like they did with the steam maze, where it was something a little bit more epic than just this kind of small room with a couple of planks across it. It felt a little bit janky to me. If I'm going to be judgmental, and you know what I'm going to be, I'm going to put this one an ouchie, even though it is very fatal. This next one, I think the delivery is what undersells it. It is teeth, and just saying teeth, does that not hurt? So this is Bobby's last solo trap. He is put into a room and he's told that 4 of his teeth, and I believe it's his wisdom teeth, have a number etched into them, and he needs to put it together to put the code together to get out. So he needs to grab the tools from within that room and remove them. He's given all the tools and he just goes for it. I think that he's such a boss for this, but it is really easy to get out of. So I'm going to give this one an ouchie because he doesn't seem phased at all. And how could you be? This one is one of the easiest traps to escape from, I think, personally. People are losing their limbs. He's just losing a couple of teeth. It doesn't seem to fit exactly where this is on the timeline of how brutal Jigsaw has been so far. And Jigsaw does get worse, so don't worry. Brazen Bull is the next one. This one is kind of legendary because this is where he meets his wife at the very end of the film. And this one is sheer poetry, or as Jigsaw would probably like to say, irony, because it is a recreation of what Bobby has said was his trap in Saw, and his wife had no idea that he was a fake this entire time, and unfortunately she's the victim in this one. So he has what I believe to be fake scars, please correct me if I'm wrong, on his body from this trap, and he needs to put sharp objects into this already pre-existing scars and hoist himself up these chains. So he needs to cling them to himself and then hoist himself up to connect two different cords together, basically. And this will stop his wife, who is on the other side of the room, from being lowered down into the Brazen Bull. And the Brazen Bull is basically a circular furnace that will just be set alight. And he does do this, to his credit. He does it very well. I actually think this one is not easy to beat at all because he ends up falling and he's got stuff in him and he just falls onto the ground before he can connect the two cords. So to his defense, he did try, but somehow he falls. It falls out of him, taking bits behind, and then it's too late and his wife is trapped, lowered down, and he has to watch everything happen to her. It's horrendous. It is very brutal and it's pretty epic and it's poetic as well. It's actually poetic. So I do really enjoy this. I don't enjoy it, but I do think it's a very impactful and disturbing trap. So I do think this one belongs at the top. I will give you that. The Brazen Bull is a great one. Okay, and then we have the reverse bear trap 3.0. Jill, who had her fake out, she was dreaming about the traps that she would be put in. She gets this really simple kind of mix of the original bear trap and the 2.0. And this one I like. This model's way better than the second one, but it's kind of a mix between the two. And it is very accurate and successful, as it does end her in a very horrific way. This is kind of a big moment for Saw because we finally get to see someone separate by the bear trap. I'm going to put this one in, there's no way out of it. That's the thing. I'm going to put in horrific because we actually get to see the result. So I feel like it's pretty epic for the Saw franchise, but I don't think it can go any higher than that because technically it is half baked. Because although it is shown it finishes, it's not really a full puzzle where she can escape and there's like any poetry really to it. I guess the poetry would be that she is connected to the person who made the original. Now let's move on to Jigsaw. So Jigsaw follows what they call the murders trial, and this is the test or trial of Mitch, Ryan, Logan, Anna, and Carly. And of course they have to complete these following traps to finish their trial and hopefully make it out alive. They wake up in the bucket room, which is probably the funniest name on this list. They have buckets over their heads and there are cutouts revealing their eyes, and around their necks is a chain that is connected to the wall. At the top of the bucket is a red light, and the bucket is a decoy. It has to do with a twist that comes in later, the reason they're wearing buckets, but you don't realize this at the time. There doesn't need to be buckets on their heads. The light could just be on their collar, indicating whether they're successful or not in the trap. It doesn't make any sense that they're wearing a bucket. The lights on the top of the bucket when they wake up are red, and they're going to turn green when they give a small sacrifice of vital fluid, and that is the key. It can be as small as possible. When they figure it out that it can be as small as possible, they go through and get the job done quite fast, quite painless in comparison to the rest of these. This is all except for poor Logan, who has had too much of the sedative that they're given while they're being put in this situation, so he does not wake up, and we'll come back to him later, but you're just meant to imagine what happens to him as they go into the next room, still being led by their chain. I think the bucket is too easy, but I will give you, it is not half-baked. They do have to sacrifice something. It is a full puzzle, but it is super, super, super simple. So I'm gonna give it an ouchie. I think it's an ouchie for sure. This one is a very strange formula because it's more of a riddle. They're offered 3 vials, one with an antidote, one with saline, and one with acid. And Jigsaw tells them that one of the 4 remaining subjects was injected with a poison. He lets them know that the poisoned subject is a thief, and now they must confess and choose a vial to try and save their lives or end them. So whoever the thief is has to confess and then has to pick between these 3 vials. A 1 in 3 chance of great survival, and Carly, she knows it's about her. She is a thief, but she refuses to pick a vial. And while this is happening, their chains are still pulling, and they're pulling against a mechanism that is up in the roof, which is the name of the trap. That's where this comes in. Basically, they're getting lifted up by their necks, and she really needs to choose fast because none of them are going to last long until she chooses one. Ryan has had enough with Carly at this point, and he decides to put all 3 into her. That way he does not miss. This goes right into her neck, and vital fluid fills up in her eyes, and she is over. Chain hangers for me is absolutely wild because of the end that poor Carly has. I think that this is incredibly unfair, and I also think she's put in the weirdest position of all of them throughout these different trials they have, these mini trials they have that are directed at some of these people. She did not get a fair shake. It was really a 1 in 3 opportunity, which was taken out of her hands. I mean, she did not play a good game. I'm actually going to put this one in horrific because of the way that she goes out and also the way that the opportunity is taken out of her hands, but also she has a choice, and that choice is so dire. There's a layer of things going on here, and when I rewatched this, I just found it to be particularly horrific. So it very much suits a B. It's a weird one though. I will say it's a very strange one. The 3 now enter a 2-in-1 trap. A lot of people call this 2 different names, but I do think it's combined. It is one trap, which really relies on 2 different spaces. Ryan walks right into the leg wire trap part of this. He heads to what he thinks might be an exit and falls through the floorboards, and here his leg goes straight into this sharp wire contraption, and it is stuck there. Any movement really tightens those strings. But he is simply told that he has to pull a lever and he will be freed. I hope you understand where Jigsaw is going with this, because after watching all of these films, it was very obvious to me what Jigsaw meant when you would be free. But while this is happening, a door swings open and the other 2 people walk into a silo. They're investigating the room until they are trapped inside. Grains start to fill up this silo, threatening both of their lives, and Ryan is given the opportunity to now pull that handbrake, pull that lever, and free not only himself but them. So he has to give something up, which we now understand is his leg. Those wires are gonna let you go, but they're not gonna let all of you go. They're gonna keep a huge chunk of you behind. Ryan does end up making a true sacrifice and freeing the other 2, but I do think this is a really abstract challenge. Trap. I think it's just really abstract and strange. The mix of the wires, which I think is a really cool design, especially with the falling into kind of a booby trap situation, going for an exit, your leg falling down, you are trapped, and it looks very painful. That crossed with grains. I just didn't quite understand the mix. The theming here seems a little bit off for me. I'm gonna give this one an ouchie. He did sacrifice himself and he did give up a big sacrifice, but he also freed the other two very easy. It's an easy choice, I think, to save 2 other lives and just lose a part of you. I say that being in the comfort of my own home. That one's an ouchie for me. A lot of people call this next one the bike trap. It's a motorbike and it's at the bottom of this really interesting spiral pattern. It's basically this huge funnel cone vat which spirals down with these really hot coils. It looks really cool from the top, but at the very bottom, at the base, is a motorcycle. And this ties in with Mitch's story, who sold a motorcycle that had faulty brakes. And he has to go down head first into this. He is pulled up and trapped in. He goes down head first and he has to hold down the brake to stop the device from working without touching anything around him. The motorbike is basically connected to it, so he needs to pump the brakes. The thing is, one of the other people try and step in and stop this machine while he's inside it, and this ends up being a huge mistake because he has a moment where he feels relieved and feels like he might be out of the situation, but when it kicks back in gear, that's when it takes him. Mitch is pulverized and it basically spits out what's left of him. It is a very interesting construction and it is on theme. It is very random. I just find this movie to be so random, but that's not a bad thing. Again, creative kills, we love. And being suspended upside down is particularly very mean during these traps, I find. I think this one goes in horrific for sure. It is definitely ironic. I'll give you that one. Maybe? I don't know. I feel like I don't know what ironic means anymore. Thank you so much, Jiggy. This one I call Backfire for very obvious reasons. Anna is the focus of the next trap. Her and Ryan, who has lost his leg in the earlier wire trap, they are changed and a barrel is placed in a room in between them. And they're given the direct clue that everything is backwards, which goes into the name of this trap. The keys to get free are put into the barrel in front of them and they have to figure out a way to get them out. Anna assumes that this means that she must use that barrel to end Ryan in the room, but when she attempts to do so, it backfires on her, literally, and inside the casing, the key is destroyed. It's a simple task, but the directions were a little bit confusing. It's meant to be a gotcha moment. It's just a silly thing to do as one of the last puzzles for this group. I didn't find having a barrel in between them that creative after everything else they've been through. It's kind of strange. This whole film is kind of strange, the theming, I felt. I'm gonna actually put this one in half-baked. I didn't really like the directions. I just didn't even think it was clever. It wasn't a gotcha moment. It felt like it belonged in a different film and not this one. So I'm gonna put it in half-baked. The next one is a favorite of a lot of people. It is the laser collar, and this is the last one in Jigsaw. So this one contains both Detective Brad Holloran and Logan, and they wake up with large metal collars that contain lasers trapped around their necks. They're facing each other, and there are 2 buttons in the room in front of them. They are instructed to confess their crime, and they're given 60 seconds to confess before the trap will start harming them. Okay, this one is a little bit confusing because it's kind of a twist, as usually the last traps in each film are. And Logan starts confessing. Remember that name, Logan? Yeah. He starts confessing and the lasers start pointing slowly. They move like this. They're slowly moving into his crown and they are successful. As it seems, he falls to the ground, ended. Now the other detective starts to confess, believing that's what we need to do in this trap, and then his lasers turn off after his confession. But Logan, he's not really gone because he gets up off the ground, revealing that he was just a part of the test. And Logan, did you guess? He was the guy in the bucket, in the bucket challenge at the very start of this film. Here's the reason why there were buckets. I knew there had to be a reason why they would put buckets on everyone's heads to conceal their identity. And this is because Logan was the guy from the very start. Now he has the confession he wanted, which honestly, I would explain it, but it would take me 10, 20 extra minutes and you do not need that right now. But he gets the confession he wants. I told you it was convoluted. And then he ends up setting the lasers to stun, callback, and they end him. There was no way out. This is a fake trap. Well, it is a real trap, but it's just used to get a confession out of him. Honestly, I would have to put this in half-baked. What makes me want to change it is the result that we get to see from the lasers. Do you know, like a Demogorgon, how it splits open? It looks like that, and it's fantastic. It is glorious. It is a good ending. They are giving you something very juicy, lots of fluids, and I was just sad that this wasn't used for a proper trap, for a puzzle that someone could get out, that we could really see someone try to get out in the right way and have a chance of being successful. Why could they not have put two people in there who were guilty and needed to confess, and the person who did it first got to live? That would have been perfect. So I'm really sad because the laser collar, everyone loves this trap, and it didn't get used right. I really feel like this film, there are some fun moments, but a lot of it just feels like it's just shoved together, or it's the leftovers from other ideas and other saw traps that they had come up with that really didn't get used in the past. So it's a bit of a bummer. I'm going to put it in ouchie though, because I do really love the result. And you know what? I'm making up my own rules as I go, just like Jigsaw. Sorry if that's upsetting, but Jigsaw gets to decide what's irony. And today I am deciding that laser collar is still really cool, guys. And you can't be too mad because we're going into Spiral next and it's about to get real silly. Spiral is the Book of Saw, so it's kind of meant to be a Saw offshoot and not directly connected, but we're gonna put it in there today, and it does start with a really cool trap. Majority of these traps following in Spiral cannot be escaped, and that is not their purpose. But let's start with my favorite, the subway, which is also known as the tongue train. In this one, Marv is captured and he awakens in a subway tunnel. He's on his tippy toes on top of a ladder-esque structure, and clamped down over his face is a metal contraption that is pulling out his tongue. A train is coming at him at full speed, and he has to decide whether he's gonna try and remove himself from his beautiful little taster muscle, or whether he is gonna collide. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have a chance to do either, and he just collides, and also what is left of him is his little muscle hanging there, flippy flappity in the clamps. So we get to see both, which I like sometimes. It is really brutal, which makes up for a lot of the slower parts of this film for sure. Say what you want about this film, but that trap is iconic. I absolutely love it. If it was in a different Saw film, everyone would be ecstatic over it. It's one of my favorites, I dare to say, when you take the traps out of the spiral. I would put it at the very top if I thought you could actually get out of it. I don't know how that would be possible to remove yourself without any instruments. You guys tell me, is that possible? I'm gonna put this one in traumatic. The next one is also really great. This is the one Saw film that I'm not obsessed with, but the traps are pretty good. So we have Detective Finch's trap next. This is known as the finger trap, but don't let the name fool you. Finch is placed in a large tank of water. He is restrained with a device over his face that he can control via his mouth. Over his fingers are metal wires, and they're in a crisscross pattern like a toy finger trap. There is a tap, and it's slowly filling the tank that he's in, and if it gets to a certain level, there will be electricity and he will end that way. But what he can do is pull down on these two metal bars that are within his teeth, and if he clamps them, they will pull his away from his body permanently. He tries to do this and it is absolutely gruesome, but what is worse is the trap doesn't quite work and some of the wires split and they end up causing a spark in the water, and he is ended, half concluding both the trap and the execution. So he gets both. We've seen this a couple of times. We saw this with Pendulum. We saw this with one of my favorites, the bedroom trap. It's when they can't do a trap fast enough. But in this case, I believe it's because it's kind of rigged. I do think it's a really cool trap though. I'm going to put in traumatic. Honestly, I didn't think this was going to happen when I was rewatching them. I was very surprised. Next is the wax trap. Angie is the focus of this trap, and she is strapped to a table with her face underneath a thin cloth. And there's a sharp instrument on this table that is pointing into the back of her neck, aiming at her spinal cord, and there is a tap that is on top of her that is focused on her crown, and it's dripping down onto this cloth. This would cause her to end because the wax is going to harden over time on this cloth, so she would not be able to get any more oxygen. The only way out is for her to purposefully move her head and her spinal cord backwards into the sharp thing at the back of her neck, severing her spinal cord. And she does try to do this and it doesn't work. It's just a nightmare. It's just a mess. Fluid is everywhere. It is disgusting. It is disturbing. And I actually find this, am I gonna do this again? It could be traumatic because I can't think of anything worse than knowing you're giving yourself that kind of injury permanently. We've talked about people losing, you know, limbs, but this is something greater, and I'm gonna have to put it in traumatic, guys. Absolutely wild for a film that I don't even love. Let's talk about Zeke's hacksaw. This is one of the worst traps, and I don't think it's really a trap, to be honest. This is when Zeke wakes up and he is being targeted by the perpetrator. He is the lead character of this film, and there is kind of this funny, I think it's funny, I don't know if it's meant to be funny moment where he has a hacksaw and he is kind of put into the bathroom situation from the very first film. I think that this is more of a joke or, you know, an Easter egg of sorts. He actually finds a bobby pin, like a hairpin nearby, and is able to use that to get out of his trap. So it doesn't work. Obviously, I don't know what kind of locks they're using nowadays, but they've really let that slide. And this one is beatable. In fact, it is so janky. I think it's just there for a laugh and just to pay ode. So this is definitely half-baked. Okay, the glass grinder. This is Peter's trap, and he is in the middle of this room chained to the roof, and Zeke has to enter and try and get him out. There is this glass grinder that is being fed just glass bottles, and it has about 10-second intervals. You can't really tell with the editing, that's so erratic, where it is chopping up that glass and then it's going to spit it out, and it will spit it out into Peter, who is in the middle of the room. Zeke can hide, but Peter is stuck in the middle, totally exposed, and Zeke tries to get him out during these intervals and also tries to cover him and get him protection. He gets the key and he does kind of get him out, but Peter is damaged beyond repair. He is ended and Zeke moves on. The glass grinder is... it's an ouchie for me. I know he doesn't get out, but he could have. They could have thought about this a lot better. It's not planned very well on Zeke's part. There's just so many things that I think that he could have done if he could think on his feet. And also, after the last kind of traps, it just felt like it was a boring contender. Okay, and this brings us to the final trap of Spiral, which is the puppet. This is Marcus Banks' trap, and this one is really complex. Marcus is suspended in the air by a metal harness, and he has IV drips attached to his limbs. Once activated, the drips will slowly drain their vital fluid, but above them is a target, and if Zeke is able to hit the target, it all ends. It's all over. Zeke is his son, and he is given the task to try and save him. Zeke hits it first go, he falls, it all seems to work out. But just in this moment, like other Saw traps at the end of each film, the twist comes in when law enforcement breaks in. This triggers the trap to make Marcus look like he is a puppet with these IV drips, and it is full irony. Is it? I don't know anymore. But it's meant to make him look like a threat because he looks like he's about to attack them and then they end him. So it's basically a full circle moment of him becoming the puppet himself, which is a callback to earlier in the film when the Jigsaw entity presents them a clip of a pig puppet, and he makes the exact same movements as this pig. I don't find it to be a great trap on its own, but the reveal and the visuals that go along with it are very cool. It feels like the film was all made around this moment, and for that I can give it props because it is a really cool moment, but it should have been a short film. I'm actually going to give this one, it's between a B and a C, but I'm going to give it a B. What do you guys think? Okay, we're there. We're finally at our last film, Saw X or Saw 10. This film is truly amazing. What you're about to witness is some of the most brutal traps in Saw history. First, we have the eye vacuum. The victim's name is unknown, but they're a hospital worker, and they're strapped into this extremely complicated custom trap. It has tubes attached to a vacuum, and at the other end, they're attached to the eyes of kind of goggles, which are strapped to the crown of the victim. And one of his hands is securely placed into a snapping device that would snap as he goes. The irony is that Jigsaw has his eyes on this man and this man has been stealing, so it's a 5-finger discount and the eyes. Jigsaw, we have achieved irony, or is this justification? He has 60 seconds to free himself by using a dial on his other free hand, and this will send back each finger, snapping them. But if he does this, he will save his eyes from being vacuumed. But he is not successful, and that is great for us horror fans who get to see this vacuum in full effect as his peepers go for a little joyride around. Love it. Absolutely love it. I think this is a great trap. It is wild that he failed when we look at some of the other sacrifices made, especially in this film to come. So I don't think he did very well, but I do love this trap. I will put it in traumatic. Okay, next we have the pipe. This one is Diego, who wakes up bound by rope and his arms are covered in duct tape with 2 sharp instruments popping out of the top. On top of this duct tape is a attached metal clamp. He is given 3 minutes to use his new little pointy fingers to get this out of his skin, and he does so. I don't think this one was actually intended to go off. I think this was easy, and the idea of who was in this trap, Jigsaw had them there to scare them and try and get information from them. So I believe that this is kind of a half-baked one. It is very effective, but it is half-baked because they are meant to be able to get out, and they had plenty of time to do so. 3 minutes? Come on. That's a lifetime in saw trap years. This next one is one of the most insane things I've ever seen, I have to say. I cannot believe that they did this. This is Bone Marrow, and if you've seen this film, this sticks out because it is so intense. Valentina is at the center of this trap, and she has a sharp wire that is right here, aimed at her crown, or just below, and she is given the instructions that there is a dotted line on her thigh that she needs to start removing, and that's not the only thing, but also then to extract her marrow using a device that they are given to her. It's like a suction. She has been given all of the professional tools, and if you know the storyline of this film, it is about surgery, so it does make sense. It is on theme, but it is a very harsh punishment. She also needs 3 ounces, so not only does she have to remove that whole part and then get that, and she also has to measure it out. This was one of the first times a limb was requested, and then also plus some. I think this one is absolutely brutal, and she doesn't make it. Who would? Who would? Just the shock alone. I don't know if it's clever enough to go to the top though. It's just so brutal that it's hard not to put all the way up there. Actually, you know what? I'm keeping it there because, like I said, if you've seen this film, that is the one that sticks out to me. That one and the next one. The next one is so bad, but that one is just diabolical. So you know what? I'm going to keep it there. This next one, brain surgery, is all you need to know. This is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. This is Mateo. He is confined to a chair and he has this giant contraption on his face. And this thing that he has on his face, it has coils inside of it. God forbid if he didn't finish his task. The coils inside this would heat up. They would swiftly and beautifully just touch his skin, and that would be the end. Obviously, it would be quite forceful. This one, as I said, it's part of the surgery theme, and he is a brain surgeon, so that is why he is put in this trap, and that is what he's asked to do. He is given everything he needs to perform surgery on himself and remove a sample of his cerebral tissue. Out of his noggin, he has to put a sample into a glass or vial or beaker in front of him, and this will cause a reaction that will open up a safe, and then you'll have the key. It's absolutely wild how many steps you would have to take while also performing this on yourself. The crazy thing about this is how close he gets to pulling it off. So when the timer starts, he has 3 minutes and he just starts digging for gold. It is absolutely wild. He does manage to secure a piece and pop it in, but the reaction doesn't happen in time, and he has about 20 seconds to spare when he puts it in, and it doesn't fully connect. I cannot believe that he couldn't just turn over a sample and then be rewarded a key and an exit, maybe a limo to the airport. It is beyond the most hectic thing that Jigsaw, Jiggy, any Jigsaw entity has ever asked of someone. And then I give this extra points because as the mask, this contraption he has on his face, closes in, it has this beautiful design that fits again with the theming of it being set in Mexico. Normally he doesn't put so many details into things like this. We've gone from, you know, steampunk basement to this kind of beautiful finishing. He could really sell these and make something of himself. So this one definitely goes all the way up the top for me. I think it's the most insane thing. Okay, the next one is the radiator trap. This is Gabriella, and she's suspended by a chain holding one of her arms, and she's held in place by another chain that is connected to her foot, and this kind of connects her to the ground. It holds her securely in place without much wiggle room, and she is strategically placed in front of this huge radiation machine for radiation therapy that obviously is too powerful for her in this situation, and she is being told to basically disconnect either side, both sides, so that she can get out of the way. All she has to do is get herself down. She tries her foot at the start thinking she's going to be able to swing away from where this machine is pointed at her, and as she does dislocate and get out of there, she swings away, but then the machine follows her. She ends up getting out though, and she falls to the ground, and she makes it out alive. She's basically alive at that point. There's more to her story, but this one, compared to the last two, are you kidding me? It's not that hard. She's definitely rosy and not all there. She needs some serious help, but she did survive, and I just think this is so strange to put back to back. Although I just don't think she got as a severe punishment because Jiggy took a little liking to her. He was mad at her, but not that mad. I'm gonna put this one in ouchie. Okay, next is the Bloodboarding. This is a very special trap because Jigsaw himself is put into it. The villains of this game put him in it, and then also this innocent boy Carlos. Although there are different rumors to how this trap was actually meant to play out in the larger picture, but people do believe Jigsaw was meant to go in it the whole time. So it is beatable, but it is pretty intense. I've seen behind the scenes footage of this construction. There's no green screens. It's just as gritty as it looks in the film. So Carlos and Jiggy are put on this kind of seesaw plank, and there are two levers, one within hand reach of each of them, and they can pull or push the lever depending on where they want this to go. And the idea is that there is a tap, or really a huge drain above them, that is pouring down vital fluid as per the name, and this is giving the effect of waterboarding. And this is opposite because they're good people. They're actually trying to relieve the other one of this pain, and they're kind of taking turns so that they both can get through it. They do end up surviving, and I like to think that this is the true irony. I know I've said that 100 times, but this is the true irony. Finally, he is tortured by the fluids of his own victims. I think that this one is definitely an ouchie. It's an easy to get out of situation, but it is epic. More of the construction of the trap is really cool to look at. But once it starts, it's, I don't know, I don't feel like there's a lot of tension going on. Okay, this is the last full trap, and then we have a bonus one. So this is the chamber. The two villains who are left over, they think they're getting away, and they go into a room to find out that really this is the real trap. You know, it's the twist at the end of the film. It's the structure every time. And once they set off this trap, there is gas that starts flooding into this room, and then they find there's a hole in the wall, and it's big enough to stick your head through, but it's rubber sealed, so only one person can stick their head through at a time in hopes to not ingest the gas. So they are fighting to get to this air hole, and then there's also instruments around the room, and it's Cecilia and Parker, and Cecilia ends up using something on Parker to end him. And the trap really ends with Cecilia like hanging her head out this little hole as everyone else exits the building. So her fate isn't really known, but I do think if we do get an extra Saw film, which everyone's going back and forth with it, that it will be a continuation of her story. From everything I know about Saw, it's always a continuation. This one's kind of silly. I don't know if it's just the performance, but they're really heavy villains. They're very intense, and it's kind of goofy to me. I do think it's a complete trap though compared to some of these. I guess Pipe Bomb is a complete trap too. No, actually, no, I'm gonna put it in ouchie, okay? I'm giving it a C. Okay, then there is one last trap that I just had to mention for the fun of it, because this as well could be a peep into what might happen. And this is the bonus scene that happens after the credits. And Henry is the victim. He is hanging by his arms, tied up in the iconic Saw bathroom, which is really exciting. He has this large contraption on his chest that has all moving parts and coils, and it looks like it's kind of shredding at the bottom. A lot of people call this something else, but I don't think there's any proof of what it's actually doing. We don't know the puzzle. We don't know the rules. We don't know if this is a punishment. So obviously this is going in half-baked, but I wanted to mention it because it looks cool and I really want to know what it is. What a journey we've been on. Would you move any? I have been thinking about this the entire time I've been filming this, and I'm actually going to put the needle pit up in traumatic because I haven't stopped thinking about how I just feel like that one gets under my skin. I've edited this. I've only been looking for a couple of seconds for you guys, but I have been looking for like 10 minutes now, and I think I'm okay with this. There are a couple, like the razor box, that I really love and I would love to put higher. You know what? I'm just going to put it high. I'm going to put it in horrific. I just really love the design, but I don't feel like it's fulfilled, but you know what? I can give it a B. It's my ranking, guys. There are a couple I have to think about how it starts and how it ends to be okay with where it is on this list, and I think I'm set. I think I'm good with this. I am really shocked by what is up the top though, and that there is only one kind of OG trap, because I really thought that my favorite Saws were the first and the second, and after rewatching them all, I feel completely different. But that is what is fun about doing these projects and diving into a franchise that you love and you've rewatched several times, but you've never seen all in one go. And I watched these all in 72 hours, and it definitely gave me a different outlook on the whole franchise. Thank you so much if you watched this whole way through. I want you to write in the comments, where is the mouse trap? I feel like that is confusing in a fun way for everyone else. Or just drop a little emoji of a star to show your appreciation if you're shy. Thank you guys so much for being here. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for supporting me when I do longer projects like this. This took me a couple of weeks once again, and I really appreciate you guys watching it. It means the world to me. I sincerely apologize for any censored language. I don't want to do it. It makes me look like an idiot. I'm aware of that. So I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. If you have not checked out my Patreon and you want to support me that way, you can always do that. That's always linked down below. It starts at only $2 US a month. So that's $24 a year. And you can support what I do here, and you also get bonus videos. But you just watching and sharing my videos, if you enjoy them, honestly, that's all I could ever ask for. So thank you so much for your time. If you want to check out some of my recent videos, here is a disturbing playlist, and here is a list of films where you can come hang out with me and come see a movie with me, and I'll keep it spoiler free, but let you know whether it's worth your time. Stay safe, friends, and stay spooky. Bye.